beautiful people. We are about to get into was Pimp My Ride totally fake? Let's look back.
In 2004, Pimp My Ride made its debut on MTV. The series focused on taking contestant-supplied vehicles that were in total and complete disrepair, restoring them, and customizing them to fit the contestants' lifestyle and hobbies. Pimp My Ride was a massive success, spawning multiple spin-offs and even a video game adaptation. But in 2015, a few Pimp My Ride contestants came forward, sharing first-hand accounts on what actually went on behind the scenes. We'll be discussing Pimp My Ride, from its humble beginnings to its immense global popularity and the various controversies that ruined the show's legacy, on today's episode of Looking Back.
Let's check this out.
Damn right.
It was always too good to be true though.
Before I even begin to talk about Pimp My Ride, we have to discuss just where the world was culturally during the time of the show's release. In the early to mid 2000s, street racing and vehicle customization were more popular than ever before. Now, it would be unfair to point at one specific product or franchise as the inspiration for an entire movement, but the Fast and the Furious was undoubtedly a huge influence for a lot of people during that era. And while it definitely wasn't the first display of street racing on the big screen, not by a long shot, the Fast and the Furious showcased countless vehicles with insane visual modifications and performance upgrades, racing through the streets of Los Angeles. That's right, the Fast and the Furious movies used to be about driving on an actual street, not in space. Nonetheless, it wasn't long before street racing culture and heavily customized vehicles made their way into nearly every form of media. I was a huge fan of the Need for Speed games when I was a kid. Hot Pursuit was great, but my mind was absolutely blown when I first heard about Need for Speed Underground. For me, and I'd imagine a lot of other people from my generation, this was my introduction to the world of import tuners and modified vehicles. Not to mention, there was an entire...
That's one thing I could say. I always loved the car games. I'm not a big gamer, but the car games I've always loved. However, I never heard of Need for Speed Underground. Never heard of it.
entire brand of vehicles, being Scion, a division of Toyota that launched in 2003, which was built upon the massive popularity of import tuners and car customization, offering hundreds of different visual and performance modifications to the consumer directly from the dealership. Wait, what was this video about again? Oh yeah, Pimp My Ride premiered on Thursday, March 4th, 2004, at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show opened up by immediately introducing the audience to its host, Xzibit, who at this point was already an established name in the world of hip-hop and had recently appeared in movies such as The Wash and the massively successful 8 Mile. But Xzibit had yet to host a reality TV show, let alone any TV show, so no one really knew what to expect from him as the face of this new series. The pilot episode would lay the groundwork for the entire show, because the format was basically the same throughout Pimp My Ride's multi-season run, always starting out with a short anecdote from Xzibit.
Always had a love affair with cars. Big ones, fast ones, especially expensive ones. Because I'm your boy X to the Z exhibit.
Which led into a quick description about the contestant's vehicle.
Unfortunately for my man Wyatt, I don't think it's possible to have any kind of affair with his 1988 Daihatsu hijack.
Followed by what would become one of the most recognizable slogans in reality TV history.
But that's all about to change. Because he has no idea. I'm about to pimp his ride.
Followed by the even more recognizable theme song, which I've honestly had stuck in my head for weeks while working on this video.
So you want to be a player, but your wheels ain't flying.
I remember.
The contestant would then give the audience a quick rundown of their vehicle, discuss their situation in life, and basically provide a case for why they deserve to have their ride pimped. Followed by a quick testimonial from the contestant's family and friends, which on one episode happened to be the actress and comedian Tiffany Haddish. But finally, the contestant would deliver the show's signature line.
So please, MTV, pimp my ride.
What comes next was honestly always my favorite part of the show, in which Xzibit would approach the contestant's home and do a quick look over of the vehicle. This is where Xzibit proved to the audience that he was the perfect choice as the host for Pimp My Ride, because he had the ability to crack jokes about the contestant's vehicle without coming across as like snobby or mean-spirited. In the first season, he definitely seemed a bit more reserved, but he really hit his stride by season 2.
Pedophile, start your engines. Yo, every creep around the world is looking at this like, yeah.
Xzibit has gone on record as saying that he wasn't forced to read a script during his time on Pimp My Ride, which was so smart on the producer's part. Because if he had been forced to read lines and hadn't been able to contribute to the show comedically, I probably wouldn't be talking about Pimp My Ride almost 15 years after it ended.
Right.
But once Xzibit took a quick tour of the vehicle by himself, he would approach the door of the contestant's home.
So what they saying is that the home is not really their home. Like, that's what we get into right now. But yeah, I was a huge fan of Pimp My Ride. I ain't gonna hold you up. Dang, did he even mention the years? Can't even remember the years. But yeah, Pimp My Ride was almost as good as or as prioritized as 106 in Park for me.
The contestant would freak out at the very sight of him, sometimes practically tackling him. Like, there's no way that he didn't walk away with some bruises during his time on the show. But it's alright, Xzibit can take it. He roundhouse kicked some fools in Def Jam Fight for New York, and was even the end boss in NFL Street 2. Xzibit would then announce that he was there to pimp the contestant's ride. A more in-depth tour of the vehicle would follow, which was often even more hilarious than Xzibit's first look at the vehicle, because this is where Xzibit, well, exhibited one of his finest comedic talents, glancing at the camera.
Where do the dogs usually ride? I think I can smell where
Yeah,
they usually ride.
they're usually in your seat right now. Or in the back seat.
Xzibit would then drive the contestant's vehicle to West Coast Customs, or in later seasons, Galpin Autosports, where a team of mechanics and specialists would discuss what would be done to the vehicle in question, based on the owner's personality, hobbies, or career. A majority of these guys hadn't been on camera prior to Pimp My Ride, so the amount of charisma they had on camera is pretty impressive, specifically during the actual work portions. The segment filmed around the table was always a little bit hard to watch, because, unsurprisingly, a former production staffer for Pimp My Ride confirmed in a Reddit Ask Me Anything thread that the show's producers would feed lines to the shop guys during that portion of the episode. So it makes sense that it didn't really feel too organic. The next several minutes would showcase the actual pimping process, where the crew would do a total and complete overhaul of the contestant's vehicle, installing massive rims or spinners, redoing the interior, restoring the body and applying paint, and of course, installing equipment and accessories that either made total sense, such as a motorized retractable grind rail on the back of the Chevy Caprice because the owner was into skateboarding, or just
Wow.
absolutely insane, completely unnecessary equipment such as this trunk conveyor belt, which came with 3 PlayStation Portable systems attached to it, simply because the contestant worked as a baggage handler at an airport. And don't even get me started on the car that had tiny LCD screens installed into its headlights. But once the work was finished, the vehicle would be...
Oh my gosh, this is just reminding me of how retarded this junk used to be. Like, the stuff that they used to add. Oh my gosh.
revealed for the contestant, and they would be given a complete tour of their newly pimped ride, with Xzibit in one or
Dang, let me take back the word retarded. I know people hate that word. How unnecessary some of the stuff was.
more crew members of the shop. Xzibit would then give the contestants some sort of gift relating to their career aspirations or personal interests, which was definitely just a way for MTV to sneak in another sponsor on the show. Finally, Xzibit would do his signature popping, or I guess pinching, of the contestant's shirt and say the line,
And you've officially been pimped.
The contestant would then reveal their upgraded vehicle to family and friends, and the episode would conclude with the contestant thanking MTV
Let's
for
get to
pimping their
behind
ride.
the scenes.
Thanks, MTV, for pimping my ride.
What happened?
Like I said, that was the general format for every single one of the show's 73 episodes, and it worked.
73?
Pimp My Ride quickly became one of the most popular shows on MTV, so much so that within 2 months of the show's premiere, before the first season even concluded, new episodes were moved from their original time slot of 10:30 p.m. on Thursday nights to Sunday nights at 9:30 p.m. during MTV's most popular programming block of its time, Sunday Stew. With Pimp My Ride, MTV clearly had a winner on their hands, and they took full advantage, broadcasting the show to over 180 countries around the world, which at one point apparently made Xzibit more recognizable than the Pope.
Like one of those things, it was like, at one point I was more recognizable than the Pope.
When was the moment you realized that it was that global?
When soccer moms that don't give a about Xzibit, the rapper, coming up to me.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say in the beginning is that I probably know I don't even know a song by Xzibit. Maybe when I hear it, but I knew he was a rapper, but I know him more for being a host on Pimp My Ride. You feel me?
And wherever I am talking about Pimp My Ride.
And I believe it, because there was a point in time where you couldn't turn on MTV, let alone any TV channel, without seeing his face.
I got this white
That
delivery
episode
truck
was crazy.
downstairs. It's kind of nasty.
No, I'm not.
What could you
I'm
do?
not-
So what if you can't pimp my?
No, I do that on TV.
Well, of course you do it on TV. What am I doing, that?
International versions of the series were also developed, such as Pimp My Ride UK and the Indonesia-based Pimp My Car, along with shows like Pimp My Wheels in Italy,
Oh, wow.
which mostly focused on scooters, Pimp My Bicycle, based out of Germany. And no, I'm not kidding. This was actually a real show, despite the fact that German viewers legitimately thought that it was meant to be a comedic parody of Pimp My Ride. The Netherlands-based Pimp My Room, which is pretty self-explanatory.
Wow.
There weren't necessarily any official spin-offs of Pimp My Ride developed for United States audiences, but MTV's sister channel, CMT, produced a show called Trick My Truck, focusing solely on big rigs. There was also Pimp My Ride International, hosted by Lil Jon and Fat Joe, which was filmed in several parts of Europe, where it also made its debut, but the show...
Wow. I wonder is Xzibit getting his bag from all of those?
Did air in the form of reruns on MTV2 in the United States. But now that we've celebrated all of the things that made Pimp My Ride so great, it's time to dig into some of the more controversial aspects of the series.
Google Career Certificates provide online training for in-demand jobs. Train for jobs in IT support.
Pimp My Ride came to sort of an abrupt end after only 6 seasons. Actually, it was 5 seasons. This seems to be a point of contention among Pimp My Ride fans, because everywhere you look online, the season counts and episode numbers are just an absolute mess. I'll spare you the long-winded explanation, but basically, every season of Pimp My Ride had between 15 and 17 episodes, with exception to season 3, which only consisted of 8 episodes. It appears that season 3 was cut short because of the split between MTV and West Coast Customs, which occurred at the tail end of 2005. West Coast Customs decided to end their relationship with MTV because their company image began to take a hit as a result of all the time spent working on contested vehicles. West Coast Customs was already an established and well-respected shop in the Los Angeles area prior to Pimp My Ride, so their increased popularity as a result of the show only expanded their client base even further. Seasons 4 and 5 would be filmed at Galpin Autosports, aka GAS, with an entirely new team of mechanics and specialists, with exception to Mad Mike.
This is definitely. Oh, I remember Mad Mike though. Mad Mike was pretty. He was pretty popular. Let's keep going.
Who was brought over from West Coast Customs. But as I was saying, Pimp My Ride ended rather
brought over from West Coast
abruptly after only 5 seasons.
That is correct.
Now, the series didn't end because of a decline in viewership or anything, but rather Xzibit's contract was up. And not only was he completely burned out by working on a reality TV show with such a busy shooting schedule, but he was so preoccupied with Pimp My Ride that his music career had taken a back seat, and he wanted to get back to touring. Xzibit also wanted to steer away from his hosting spot on Pimp My Ride to further pursue his acting career, which had slowed down a bit during his time on the show. Now, you might be asking, why didn't MTV just hire a new host and continue Pimp My Ride without Xzibit? Out of the 73 Pimp My Ride episodes produced for MTV in the US, Xzibit hosted 72 of them, with the rapper Chamillionaire standing in as a guest host on one episode during the show's 5th and final season. During his interview with The Breakfast Club, Xzibit explained that this episode, Season 5, Episode 9, titled Jonathan's 1991 Honda CRX, was actually the final Pimp My Ride episode to be filmed. Long story short, this episode was a bit more costly than the usual installment of Pimp My Ride, because it was a promotional tie-in for the upcoming film Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. And because of that, Xzibit, who was in Europe at the time for a concert tour, agreed to fly back and host the episode, but only if the production company agreed to pay him $1 million. Ultimately, they didn't come to an agreement, and Chamillionaire was brought in to host the episode. And Chamillionaire did a pretty decent job. I mean, he did say the word urine way too many times.
True story, I used to ride around Houston, Texas, working for a medical lab, and used to pick up urine samples in a Honda CRX. Yo, what are you doing with this urine in the backseat? I'm delivering urine to my job. You know, this hatch opens up so wide that you can easily put your urine samples in the back. I never spilled any urine in the back of the car because we had to...
What the world, man? Jeesh. Cause Chamillionaire is so dope right now. He big on the entrepreneurship, knowledge, you know, artists, you know, to music industry type deal. I got huge love for who Chamillionaire is today. So I definitely feel like he could have did that. He could have went on to be the new host of Pimp My Ride. So yeah, it definitely sucks that the last episode, 73rd episode, was hosted by Chamillionaire as a stand-in, I guess. Well, there you have it.
The biodegradable cooler, and the cooler was to keep the urine cool because they say urine has to stay cool. Am I talking too much about urine?
but other than that, he was fine. It's kind of hard to judge his hosting abilities based on one episode, so I don't know if he would have been an adequate replacement for Xzibit. And I mentioned earlier that Pimp My Ride International also aired in the US, with Lil Jon and Fat Joe hosting the show. Lil Jon was, definitely something. Don't get me wrong. I laugh every time I hear him scream, "Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!" But if you had to hear that multiple times per episode, it would probably get old pretty quick. And based on the 1 or 2 episodes I've watched with Fat Joe as host, I could actually see him being a viable replacement for Xzibit. But during the same interview with The Breakfast Club, Xzibit also revealed that someone at MTV once said,
I think actually they said that. They was like, you know, anybody with braids can do what Xzibit.
Whoa, with braids.
That's racist.
Yeah,
Damn, that's
exactly.
crazy.
Who any rapper said that?
which is just wrong on so many levels. Xzibit became so synonymous with Pimp My Ride and added so much character to the show that I honestly don't think anyone could have replaced him. And if someone had, I don't think the show would have lasted much longer. But after Xzibit quit the show, MTV abandoned the concept of Pimp My Ride in the United States, instead placing all of their bets on a series called Trick It Out, which wasn't nearly as popular or impactful as Pimp My Ride. It only ran for 2 seasons, and to be totally honest, I completely forgot about it prior to the making of this video. Even after Pimp My Ride came to an end in the United States, the show never truly fell to the wayside pop culture-wise. It was kept alive by the famous Yo Dog memes, which couldn't be avoided in the early part of the 2010s. And at that same time, Xzibit was even still being asked to pimp people's rides.
You never see me with one tool on the show. You saw me at the beginning and saw me at the end. You never saw me in the middle, fixing nothing. I was the face of the show. You know what I'm saying? So people associate me with what happened to the car. I didn't do to that car.
But Pimp My Ride made headlines in 2015, and the show's credibility and legacy took a massive hit. The Huffington Post published an article titled, "Here's What Really Happened to the Cars from Pimp My Ride," in which 3 former Pimp My Ride contestants...
Yeah, this what I really want to know. This what I really want to know, the behind the scenes of the actual car situation. But it's good to know that, you know, it just couldn't last without Xzibit, right? It couldn't last without Xzibit, and if a Fantastic Four situation as well. I think it's totally understandable.
spoke about their experiences with the show, along with former co-executive producer on Pimp My Ride, Larry Hochberg, who offered some insight from a production point of view. The contestants in question were Jake, who appeared in Season 3 with his 1986 Buick Century, along with Seth and Justin, who appeared on episodes in Season 5 with a 1989 Nissan Maxima and a 1997 Toyota RAV4, respectively. But the Huffington Post article went over everything from the production team planning items into contestant vehicles to accessories and equipment being removed after the cameras stopped rolling. For instance, Justin spoke of the pop-up champagne contraption being removed after filming. They also removed the projector that was installed on the dashboard, and the reverse opening hood was also swapped out for safety reasons. And the most disappointing portion of the—
You got to be kidding me. It's no back seats, bruh. People know that. You can't take back. What the world? Was this in the contract? Was this in the contract? Did they not read the contract? Most of the time, I mean, did they not sign a contract? What was the paperwork? That's what I need to know. What was the paperwork like? Because that's crazy.
The article involved Seth's Nissan Maxima, in which members of the production crew dumped bags of candy onto the backseat of his car to sort of poke fun at his size. And to make matters worse, a cotton candy machine was installed into the trunk of the Maxima, which Seth felt pretty insulted by, saying to the Huffington Post, "I think they just wanted to put a cotton candy machine in a car and use the fat guy as the opportunity to do it." And before you knew it, nearly every major entertainment news outlet had published their own story, using this article as a reference, with clickbait-heavy titles such as "Show was nearly entirely fake" and "Pimp My Ride lied." Obviously, seeing as Pimp My Ride was a reality TV show, a lot of what you saw was influenced through writing or off-camera coaching by one or more producers. It's just the nature of reality TV. But when it comes to Pimp My Ride, what exactly was fake and what was real?
That's ridiculous.
Starting with the contestant audition portion of the episode, it turns out that some of the vehicle damage shown was done on purpose to make the vehicle look worse. Sometimes by the vehicle owner or the show's production members. For example, Justin mentioned that the production crew partially removed the front bumper on his RAV4. They also used a product called aircraft remover on the paint and increased the size of the dent on the rear liftgate. I'm not saying that this was done to
God.
every vehicle that appeared on Pimp My Ride, but regardless, it was happening.
Such a disappointment.
So, the homes shown on Pimp My Ride weren't the contestants' actual residences. They were mostly houses that weren't occupied that were, at the time, listed for sale or rent, or they belonged to production team members on Pimp My Ride. MTV would just borrow these houses for the show, and they were always within driving distance of West Coast Customs or Galpin Autosports. The reason being, Xzibit actually drove the contestant vehicles to the shop. That part of the show actually wasn't staged. But apparently, the contestant was told to wait in the house until they heard a knock at the front door. A producer would tell them that when they answered, it would either be Xzibit, which meant that they were picked to have their ride pimped, or a crew member on the show, letting them know that they weren't chosen. But from what I understand, none of the contestants on the US version of Pimp My Ride were ever greeted by a crew member when they answered the door. This was simply a tactic used by the production team to get a more genuine reaction out of the contestant when they were greeted by Xzibit. The production crew would even apply black construction paper onto the windows of the house so that the contestant wasn't able to see Xzibit approaching the door. This easily caused the biggest divide among fans and critics of Pimp My Ride. The vehicles on Pimp My Ride were always outfitted with the most insane visual upgrades, but it wasn't often that any work was shown being performed under the hood of the vehicle. Don't get me wrong, engine work and engine replacements were done on Pimp My Ride, but unfortunately, the 3 contestants interviewed by the Huffington Post had 0 engine work done to their vehicles, resulting in mechanical problems that they had to resolve on their own dime. When the Huffington Post asked co-executive producer Larry Hochberg about this, he explained that some of the cars were so old and rusted that they would have mechanical issues no matter how much work you put into them. The show wasn't about saving cars from breaking down, it was about pimping cars. And to get another perspective on this, I turned to the channel Brain Shatterer here on YouTube, run by Kirsten, whose wife Erin appeared on season 4 of Pimp My Ride with her 1973 Volkswagen Thing. He mentioned that when a representative from MTV initially called Erin about her Volkswagen, they made it clear that a full restoration wasn't going to be done on the vehicle, aside from the obvious visual restorations that the show was known for. But Galpin Autosports actually ended up installing a new turbocharged engine into Erin's VW Thing, which wasn't uncommon during the 4th and 5th season of the show when gas took over.
Yeah, you know in Pimp My Ride, we changed engines too.
I thought you really did keep the
This
same
season.
engine.
That man said this season.
Pimp My Ride always made it seem like the work being done on these cars only took a few days, which was far from the truth. Now, in all fairness, none of the guys in the shop or Xzibit ever mentioned a time frame in which the vehicle would be completed. But right before the vehicle was revealed to the contestant, without fail, a clip would always be shown of the shop crew finishing up their work in a timely manner, which kind of gave you the impression as the viewer that it took a lot less time than the actual time frame, which, based on several contestant testimonials, was actually 5 to 7 months. Obviously, with a show that relies on contestant-supplied vehicles, they aren't going to reveal that it takes months for the work to be completed. That would immediately turn people off from wanting to audition for the show. But honestly, with the amount of work they put in, and the number of vehicles they worked on per season, that time frame really isn't that bad.
Right.
And finally, the portion where the vehicle was revealed to the contestant. Do you remember how much the contestant would freak out when they saw their newly pimped vehicle? It would be stupid to say that every single contestant faked their reaction, because I totally understand their excitement. But Jake shared that when his Buick was revealed, his initial reaction was just standing there saying, "Holy f***." Apparently, that wasn't good enough, because Big Dane, accessory specialist at West Coast Customs, reportedly put his arm around Jake, walked him around the shop for several minutes and said, "Listen, we put a lot of work into this. We expect you to be a little more f***ing enthusiastic." Which I totally believe, because the reaction that they used on the show is so over the top and clearly exaggerated for the camera. Clearly, the reaction segment required multiple takes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I know I'm laughing, but I really hate that this had to, that this turned out like this. This is crazy.
But obviously, the final product is heavily edited. So it would be really unfair to label Pimp My Ride as fake. Reality TV, especially in the modern age, is always exaggerated or set up in some way. At the end of the day, Pimp My Ride is still just as enjoyable as it always was. But like all reality TV, should be looked at with a bit of skepticism.
Well, from that perspective, I totally get it.
Thank you for watching today's episode.
Reality TV is scripted in some form or fashion. That was very interesting. Like I said, you know, Pimp My Ride was definitely one of those shows that that was prioritized just as much as 106 in Park. I definitely know Xzibit more from Pimp My Ride than I do as an artist. It's crazy because I forgot he was in movies like Gridiron Gang, because that's one of my favorite movies as well. So yeah, it was definitely very, very informative. Extremely shocking, I guess, to the child me, you know what I'm saying? So being that I'm an adult, I'm not extremely shocked, but definitely to my child self, definitely I didn't expect to hear those disappointing factors. Alright, I am your girl V Coop, down piece in the V Coop to be exact. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, man, right here on Coop Troop Live. Till next time, thank you for joining.